We're going to keep looking at this idea of efficiency, but from a technology perspective. A few years ago, as a digital product design manager at Facebook, Russ Maschmeyer witnessed a rapid evolution in the tools used for web and app design. He believes that tools for interior design are about to go through a similar sea change, affecting the process for professionals and consumers, with virtual and augmented reality, computer vision, machine learning, and photogrammetry. Russ recently founded Primer, an app where you can try on and order products from brands like Clay Tile and Huga and West. Today, he's going to walk us through some of the technologies that are here today and direct our gaze to what's on the horizon. Please join me in welcoming Russ Maschmeyer, who's also in our San Francisco studio.
Thank you, Dennis. My name is Russ Maschmeyer. A bit about me. I studied fine art in college and then spent my 20s falling in love with designing and building websites. Wanting to go deeper with technology, I lucked my way into a master's degree in interaction design, where I honed my skills as a digital product designer. And that led to an opportunity at Facebook, where I got the chance to lead design teams creating products and features used by billions of people around the world every day. In 2018, after about 6.5 years, I left Facebook to start something new. Growing up in Georgia, my dad was a real estate developer, and I can remember Saturday visits to job sites, following him around, watching him assess progress, fixing things here and there. And as we would walk through the sites, I can recall trying to imagine what each space would become. He'd point out a collection of samples and ask my opinion on which finishes I liked most. I was probably the only 6-year-old with an opinion on stucco. And maybe I'm weird, but I still love the smell of drywall and 2x4s. Seeing buildings come together from nothing seeded in me an appreciation for architecture, design, and craft. I found an outlet for that passion later in life in traditional woodworking and furniture design. There's nothing more satisfying than building something beautiful and physical with simple tools and your own hands. As I reached the end of my tenure at Facebook, I wanted to build a bridge between my love for craft and the built environment and my love for technology. Last year, I co-founded a company to do exactly that. We're building the best tools for visualizing changes to your space and making them real. I'm excited to share more about that in a moment, but want to first share a story about how the right tools can reshape the creative process and even change an industry. In 2011, I had just started working at Facebook. Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, of course, but product design is such a young field that these were the quote-unquote olden days of product design. Back then, we didn't have purpose-built design tools for interaction design, designing apps and websites. The closest thing we had was Photoshop, a tool created for editing still images, not for designing highly dynamic, interactive software. We did our best with what we had, but our design work always ended up feeling static, stale, lifeless. There's this quote I love by the mid-century media philosopher Marshall McLuhan: "We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us." Photoshop, designed for editing images in a static medium, made it exceptionally challenging to design for a dynamic, interactive one. The iPhone came out in 2007. Just 4 years later, it was clear that apps would be the future of consumer software. Websites like Facebook had to make the leap into a totally new medium or risk being left behind. But apps were quite different from websites. Multi-touch gestures created opportunities for new kinds of experiences and interactions, but we still didn't have the right tools to experiment and think in that way. So we struggled to take advantage of that new potential. Then one day at work, I noticed a huddle forming around Mike Mattis's desk. Mike is a bit of a legend in the product design world. As a college-age kid, Mike was hired by Apple to design many of the apps and gestures for the original iPhone. He had helped design one of the most successful hardware products of all time. Everyone was gathered around Mike's desk to watch him work, so of course I went over to have a look too. Working with an engineer, Mike had hacked together a design tool that allowed him to quickly prototype complex interactions and flows. And at the time, creating interactive prototypes like this would have required working back and forth with an engineer for days or even weeks. But with this new design tool, he could easily compose and try different interaction ideas in just a few minutes, without writing a single line of code. If he wasn't happy with the way something felt, he'd make a few tweaks, then try it again. The speed at which he could audition bigger and bolder ideas accelerated his design process, and he was able to generate better design work in less time than a whole team of designers could. The rest of the design team wanted in. As word spread, his tool inspired an explosion of similarly minded prototyping tools like Framer, Origami, and Form, tools purpose-built for designing complex interactions. My co-founder at Primer, Adam, was a member of the early Form team before it was acquired by Google. He witnessed firsthand the impact these tools had across the industry. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. Mike Mattis's approach inspired and reshaped the way an entire industry works. You'd have a hard time finding a product designer today who would go back to time and life before these tools. Today, product designers are able to design and prototype rapidly, communicate their ideas clearly, and ultimately have more creative firepower to imagine and realize dynamic and delightful product experiences. Now, with this story in mind, let's turn our focus back to designing for the built environment. What tools will unlock exponentially better ways of working in architecture, production, and commerce? These are the three big technologies that will change the way we work today: photogrammetry, computer vision, and augmented reality. Today, I want to dive into each of these to give you a sense of the state of the art and highlight some of the opportunities each presents to reshape the way we work for the better. Let's start with photogrammetry. When we begin a project, there are so many details to capture when measuring and understanding the existing space. The process can be tedious, and even the most experienced team makes errors from time to time. Whether it's countertops or cabinets, shelving, flooring, or finishes, there's really nothing more heartbreaking on a big install day than discovering your pieces won't fit because the original measurements were off. What you see here is an example of photogrammetry. Using algorithms that stitch together thousands of photos with laser measurements, photogrammetry can produce a near-perfect 3D model of any space, like as-built drawings on steroids. With a digital model of a space, access to the site is no longer required to begin design or production, something that's become even more critical during this pandemic. This model can be shared and consulted for measurements or information needed about the space. Now, before production begins, 3D models of proposed elements can be placed inside the model to ensure a good fit, avoiding those heartbreaking moments on install day. And these models can be shared and explored instantly from anywhere with augmented reality. The ability to quickly scale the model enables you to get a bird's eye view and quickly survey the landscape in addition to the interior spaces. And the fidelity of photogrammetry can be incredible. This particular model is accurate down to the millimeter level. Imagine having this as your starting canvas for your next project. And imagine having tools that let you design directly on top of these models and share those ideas instantly with your clients. Photogrammetry also offers a faster and less expensive alternative for custom modeling products in 3D. Virtualizing a product line is useful, but it can be resource intensive. Hiring 3D artists to create lifelike models of your products for use in renders and augmented reality can be prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. If your product line changes seasonally, it's challenging to generate those models before the season changes. So for the most part, only large manufacturers have been able to afford to take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. But photogrammetry offers a less expensive and faster alternative. It isn't yet accessible enough to be used by the average person for everyday projects, but as this tech becomes more accessible, the possibilities for artists, craftspeople, and manufacturers will explode. Imagine an artist being able to capture high-fidelity models of a new piece to share with buyers all over the globe. Or imagine an architect navigating a hyper-accurate and realistic model of their client's space, created in minutes instead of many hours of expensive labor. The great news is that photogrammetry is becoming more accessible. This year, Apple added a LiDAR sensor to the iPad Pro, and the iPhone 12, due out this fall, is rumored to have the new sensor as well. Other device makers are already following suit, in a couple of years, LiDAR sensors will be as commonplace on our mobile devices as camera sensors are today. LiDAR sensors use lasers to take 500,000 measurements every second. As you move your device's camera through space, the sensor creates a point cloud of the environment. And when combined with the live pixel data from the iPad's camera, you get an accessible, instant tool for photogrammetry. As this more accessible form of photogrammetry gains wider adoption, clients will be able to instantly map and share the minute details of their space with their architects and designers. Mobile photogrammetry will speed remote collaboration, reduce errors, and streamline estimation and production, ultimately reducing costs, headaches, and delivery schedules. While photogrammetry helps us build an amazingly accurate 3D image of a space, it still requires the trained eye of a designer or architect to dig through the model, to understand it, and make use of it. With computer vision, much of the tedious work of labeling and assigning meaning to the data of these models can be automated, freeing up that time for more creative pursuits. Computer vision is simply machine learning applied to images. Among other things, it enables software to identify objects, discern architectural features, and distinguish walls from ceilings from floors. In this proof of concept from Unity, computer vision helps guide the shopping experience in intuitive ways. Knowing that the user is looking at the floor, it recommends furniture and potted plants. When looking at a wall, it surfaces other relevant options, like artwork and wall clocks. While these may seem like small improvements on the surface, keeping shoppers in flow while they design their space in real time will have huge positive impacts on engagement and conversion. Computer vision is also capable of identifying specific objects too. This computer vision system, named YOLO V4, can identify the instruments and even the individual band members from the Beatles after having been shown just a few training images. What's impressive is that this system hasn't studied this particular video or images from it before. Still, it's able to recognize these objects and celebrities in real time. Videos run 30 frames per second, so after having studied only a few photographs, it's able to distinguish Paul McCartney from John Lennon at every frame in less than a 30th of a second. Now, in our homes, computer vision systems like ObjectNet 3D are already able to identify individual pieces of furniture and estimate the orientation of each piece in the room. Taking an inventory of someone's existing home would be exhausting today, but surveying an entire house with this technology would take only a few minutes and provide designers and architects with a layer of intelligence about the client's space and decor to help inform the design process. So photogrammetry and computer vision provide a great foundation that helps us map and understand spaces as they exist. With those in place, augmented reality enables us to instantly reimagine those spaces and to design directly into them. Now, I'll be the first to admit, early AR experiences were pretty gimmicky and quite often just flat out broken. But the technology has advanced rapidly over the past few years. And today, AR experiences can now react to the environment in real time and blend virtual objects more naturally into the environment by adjusting to the ambient lighting conditions. AR is now in nearly everyone's pocket. Over 1 billion devices support augmented reality today. By 2022, that number will pass 3.4 billion. And that distribution is well timed. This technology is coming of age when it's needed most. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, e-commerce penetration exploded from 17 to 22% in the US this year. In the UK, it shot over 30%, expanding as much in the last 6 months as it did in the 10 years before. Consumers have changed their behaviors and expectations, and this trend is unlikely to reverse. Now that we're buying online more, we'll miss the opportunity of holding a product in our hands before buying it. So we're looking for better ways to experience products digitally. Wannakicks has built an app that lets sneakerheads try on shoes virtually. Earlier this year, Pinterest launched a makeup preview feature, and Warby Parker lets you try on their glasses virtually. Bikes, cars, jewelry, clothing, furniture, laundry machines, nearly any major purchase you can think of is now available to preview in AR. And because augmented reality makes it possible to blend virtual products into the real world seamlessly, it will revolutionize the way we shop, but also the way we see and shape our spaces, giving consumers, manufacturers, and design professionals the perfect tool for thinking and designing in new ways. When we started Primer, we asked ourselves a question. With all of these amazing technologies available, Why is it still so hard to visualize changes to your space? Why are we still ordering tiny samples and painting swatches on our walls, when what we really want is to try things out in our space at full scale? We heard from our friends and our early users over and over that being able to visualize an idea directly in your space unlocks the confidence to make it real. A few large retailers like IKEA saw the promise of augmented reality early on and launched their own app experiences. That foresight will pay off. In 5 to 10 years, customers will simply expect augmented reality tools when shopping online. And the brands that move quickly now will benefit the most. But building world-class AR experiences is challenging, and the technology is constantly changing. At Primer, we want to make these technologies more accessible for every consumer, designer, and manufacturer. Our augmented reality platform helps manufacturers virtualize their products so that design professionals and consumers can visualize them directly in their space with our free app. We've built partnerships with forward-thinking brands like Farrow & Ball, Clay Tile, and Hygge & West, among others, who understand the potential of these new technologies. We launched our app earlier this year, supporting wall treatments like paint, tile, and wallpaper, and we'll be expanding our library of brands and product categories over the coming months. Since launch, people have now used Primer to visualize a product in their space over 130,000 times. And that's a lot of samples that never had to be mailed, a lot of CO2 kept out of the atmosphere, and a lot of packaging kept out of the landfill. Every product and material that we virtualize goes through our rapid modeling pipeline, which enables us to accurately capture the color, the scale, and the surface properties like the glossiness of a tile or the sheen of a paint from still images with an exceptionally high degree of accuracy. And these properties can actually be previewed directly in AR on your mobile device. The Primer engine uses physically based rendering to show users how these materials react to light in real time. So for the first time, we can actually help people see how the light will play off the surface of any tile virtually in their space, or preview the actual sheen of a paint in addition to the color, or model the unique properties of a paper in a particular wallpaper. And at Primer, we believe augmented reality will not only transform commerce, but will also change the way we see and shape our spaces. Just as new prototyping tools revolutionize digital product design, tools like Primer will revolutionize the architecture and interior design process, because we finally have an accessible technology that allows us to intuitively design within the space itself. Augmented reality helps us build a bridge between imagination and reality. When people can visualize changes to their space instantly, they can make decisions faster and collaborate with anyone, anywhere. This is the future that gets us really excited. If you're a manufacturer, architect, or designer interested in using these new tools, I'd love to connect. Some folks believe that technology threatens to automate creativity, but no algorithm can ever replace the inventive, messy brilliance of the human mind. These tools simply augment our natural creative abilities. They enable us to imagine and audition new realities in more vivid and immersive ways. They enhance and streamline our creative process. Ultimately, it's still up to us and our intuition to make the bold decisions that move our projects and our cultures forward. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. Not many people know that this quote by Marshall McLuhan was actually borrowed from an earlier quote by Winston Churchill. We shape our buildings, and thereafter our buildings shape us. Now more than ever, our well-being is intimately tied to the spaces where we spend our days. Our homes support the most basic functions of life, from preparing breakfast to getting a good night's sleep. They are also a creative canvas, an outlet for expressing who we are in both personal and social ways. I look forward to experimenting with these technologies alongside you all to find new ways of seeing, new ways of designing, new ways of collaborating. Let's use these technologies to shape bolder, more dynamic spaces together, so that those buildings may in turn shape the next generation to come.